For more reaction to the ambassador's death, we're now joined by the ANC NEC member, Dr. Malusi Gigaba. Dr. Gigaba, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. Certainly a very somber evening and a sad time. Not only have you lost a friend, but a fellow comrade.
Thank you. Good evening, Katlego and the viewers at home. Indeed, we would like first and foremost to join the President in conveying our condolences to Sis Philisiwe and the family as a whole, especially the children, and the whole family of Nathi Mthethwa and Buthelezi on this tragic loss. As a nation, we have lost a dedicated fighter for our freedom. And as the movement, we've lost a very committed activist for total emancipation who loved his country dearly and served her to the bitter end.
I mean, you describe him as a dedicated and committed activist. We heard there the KZN convener, Jeff Radebe, speaking of him also as a dedicated someone to the ANC, was very instrumental in advocating for the education of young people within that province. How do you remember him, particularly as a colleague? I mean, you served as the Minister of Public Enterprises more or less the same time that he served as Minister of Police.
You know, beyond the official titles that we carried at one point, we were both young activists in KZN during a very difficult time of political violence in KwaZulu-Natal unleashed by the apartheid regime. I remember him when we were busy re-establishing the structures of the ANC Youth League after the unbanning of the ANC. We served in the same structures from 1990 up until when in 1993 we elected him into the NEC of the ANC Youth League. I then joined them in 1996 when I also got elected president of the ANC Youth League. During the time when we were both in KZN, he worked very hard. First as the administrator of the ANC Youth League, politically the administrative secretary, and subsequently as the regional secretary of the ANC Youth League. So he was someone I knew to be dedicated to the struggle, dedicated to political education, dedicated to organization. But later, when he was minister, he worked very hard in the positions in which he served to ensure that he fulfilled his mandate and the mandate of government, and continued to do so even when he became ambassador. He was an unassuming person who loved debate, but at the same time, he loved a good joke. So he was a full person who lived a full life. It is still unbelievable that we are talking of him in the past tense. It still seems, unbelievable. We are still in shock. We can't understand what has happened.
I mean, you speak of him from the early days in the late 80s and the early 90s as young activists, and of course, a lot of the time that you served together as ministers. But what do you remember about him as a person? You say he loved a good joke. What was it about his personality that today you could remember forever?
Comrade Nathi was an unassuming and very humble person. He loved soccer as a young person. We knew him as a left-footed footballer whom we nicknamed Jazzman after Oscar Jazzman Dlamini, who used to play for Orlando Pirates, but also because he himself loved Orlando Pirates dearly. So I remember him in those respects, walking in the streets of Durban to political meetings, to go have fun at the beach in Durban. But I also remember him mostly as somebody who loved debate. He used to engage us in debates. He was immersed in reading. He had very great sympathy for the struggle of the Sahrawi people in Western Sahara, believed in the Polisario Front, and wrote extensively on the struggles of the Sahrawi people. And he also was in solidarity with the struggles of the Palestinian people. He was somebody who, even though he was fun-loving and loved jazz, African jazz in particular, but he also loved politics immensely. And that's why Comrade Jeff and many of us who grew up with him would remember him as somebody who was involved in political education. I was honored at his wedding to be invited as the best man. A responsibility I took seriously because this was somebody I had grown up with, grown up under, looked up to as an elder brother, but who also treated me as an equal politically, and also supported me during my tenure as president of the ANC Youth League, and during the time we both served as ministers.
He was also described as a historian. I mean, how much of that plays an impact in the type of politician that he was, given his love for history?
He was indeed a historian, very committed to the history, to understanding and unraveling the history of South Africa, the political and economic history of our country, the history of the African National Congress and the ANC Youth League, so that we understand where we come from in order for us the better to know what challenges still lie ahead of us in the struggle for total emancipation. So he would get himself engrossed in all of these debates, immersed in extensive reading, so that he understood the history of our country from all its components, political, economic, military, and so on, and in order to guide the next steps that we were taking as a country and as a movement.
I mean, he met his untimely death as an ambassador to France. What role would you say he played, especially in just the relations between these two countries over this 12 months that he did serve?
One of the things that was his hallmark was his unassuming nature and his humility to serve wherever he was deployed. You know, when he moved from police to arts and culture, he didn't complain. He didn't say that, oh no, this responsibility is not like the other. He believed that all responsibilities were equal in importance. And so when he was deployed as ambassador to France, he took that responsibility very seriously, understanding what he needed to do in order to advance South Africa's interests within the EU, in France in particular, in a very challenging moment in terms of geopolitical dynamics, when we see so many changes taking place in terms of the different geopolitical conflicts, the changes in the geopolitical power dynamics, particularly between the United States, the EU, and China. And he wanted to advance Africa's best interests in all of those portfolios, in all of those platforms. And because he was such an accomplished politician, he understood what political responsibility lay in front of him as an ambassador, and was very keen to fulfill that responsibility with high energy and enthusiasm. Unfortunately, he has met his demise in difficult circumstances that we are still trying to grapple with. But South Africa must remember him as a son that gave his all to ensure that South Africa is completely liberated.
All right, Dr. Gigaba, condolences once again. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's very difficult to come in and do such an interview at a time when you've lost someone as close as this. So we certainly do appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you for the empathy.
All right, so that was Dr. Malusi Gigaba, an ANC NEC member and a friend to the late Nathi Mthethwa.